Howdy, everyone. Welcome in. TexAgs Rewind. Nick Savage filling in for David Nuno. Richard Zane to my left.
For nobody.
Filling in for nobody. To be honest, I can't really remember what we have on the Rewind. Kind of a weird deal.
Well,
so we had
you had John,
Arkansas Insider.
Yeah,
obviously.
I forgot about that one.
We had John Nabors on to start it off. John Harris followed him up. Yeah,
Strong couple of Johns.
Talked a little MLB. My gosh, I'm all thrown off.
Talked
a little
NFL.
yeah, with John Harris. Had Brauninger on to talk a little recruiting, and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing from Sightseeinger back from his vacation to Northern California. Back, quote unquote back. He didn't make it into the office for reasons unknown, but
yeah,
always good to hear that Southeast Texas accent.
I mean, like
Hi.
A 5-hour wait from DFW to College Station. Just get a rental car. Just come home. Just drive home.
I thought the exact same thing.
Why wait?
But I'm sure there's a very not so good explanation for that. I'm sure he thinks it's a good explanation, but that's on him.
Well, that's
hey, my flight got banged. I got a 5-hour layover.
Bronny's on the Rewind. Watch it.
Where do you put KJ in the SEC quarterback tier?
I mean, right now, I put him at least top 2. Like I can hear arguments for other guys too, and I know that the SEC, it feels like every time, or at least most time, when you go into a season, people are like, okay, well, this is the best quarterback, and this is the second best quarterback. But once the season over, it doesn't always go that way. But I think experience matters. I think experience matters with KJ. I think that if he wasn't injured in 2.5 games last year, not only was his stats been a lot better, but I also think it just took a hit just because Arkansas didn't have that high level success, or at least that winning success that you need to have to be considered one of the top quarterbacks. But I think that with the addition of Dan Enos, who's done a great job of, getting quarterbacks in good position to be successful, I think with the addition of adding some weapons, especially at that tight end position, which Arkansas had so many great tight ends in the past 20 years, but in the past 3 years, they've had nobody to throw to. They've added some really good pieces there. I think KJ is going to take that next step forward. And going into this year, I personally think he's the best quarterback in the SEC. I'll hear arguments for him being number 2, but I'd be hard pressed to think that anybody can say going into this season that he's anything lower than 3. I just don't think that's possible.
John, you made a statement earlier that you don't think the defense can be any worse. But let me ask you this: no bumper pool, Drew Sanders. Like, how do they replace that and not get worse?
Well, it's because those guys were great. And Drew Sanders, of course, was incredible. Arkansas was one of the teams that led the SEC in sacks. But the problem is that, and I'm not kidding about this, the pass defense was dead last in the FBS. That's dead last in yards given up. I mean, it's just like people were toying with Arkansas when they got out there. So it's kind of like when you look at the defensive pass, or the pass defense at least, that can't get any worse because you were dead last. And they've added a lot of big pieces and out of the transfer portal. They've changed coaches. They've gotten some experienced guys. And I think that they're going to be significantly better defensively. Now, does that mean top 5 in the SEC? Probably not. But how many times Arkansas lost games last year because their defense was so abysmal?
Texas is absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt. Right up there. I mean, Sarkisian, it's in, last year, the Big 12, it's a revamped Big 12. Like, either Sarkisian's getting it done this year or he's not. And I'm working right now on both my Harris 100, and then I started on the Big 12, and I'll do this for the SEC as well, but do the top draft picks coming out of the I've done the SEC on my YouTube page, and I'm working on the Big 12. As I'm going through it, like my top, 20, it's like 8 guys from Texas. It's not a great year in the Big 12. So, okay, if Texas doesn't win it, then what? I mean, I don't know how you even handle that going forward. You going to the SEC, after going 7-5 and going back to the Alamo Bowl. No, this has got to be a year where Texas does it or doesn't, and at that point, they're going to have to make a decision about Steve Sarkisian. You said Michigan State. I think that's another one. Mel Tucker 2 years ago was fantastic. I mean, it was the perfect time, and he hit it perfectly. But after that, there have been defections from the program. They don't have the quality of player. I mean, the record dropped. I mean, it's that buzz that got Mel Tucker $9.5 million a year. Oh boy. I'll give you another one. And I do think they'll be better this year. So I'm not totally in this. And they do have probably a little bit of wiggle room because they were so good for so long, but it's Clemson. Clemson's got no excuses. You know, the DJ Uyunglele, excuse is gone. It's Cade Klubnik from out of Westlake. And, oh, man, he's 5-star. He was the guy. Okay, well, against Tennessee in the bowl game, it didn't look good. So what's it going to be? Now, that might be the most talented defensive front in the country. But beyond that, offensively, what's it going to be? New offense coordinator? So, okay, what are the excuses for Clemson? Really, there aren't any.
Well, I was trying to keep up with both the baseball and the football stuff, and Jason was all over what was going on with the official visits. But we have been able to talk to, 6, 7, 8 kids. We've been able to connect with some sources about how things went. And no commitments coming off the weekend, but we weren't really expecting anything. There wasn't a kid coming in that we were really eyeballing and we're getting stuff prepped and ready for in terms of a commitment. But just like it's been for the majority of the 2024 cycle so far, we continue to hear that things were extremely well planned out. They moved efficiently. There wasn't a lot of hiccups in terms of the operation. And then one of the more surprising things to me was, they brought in a bunch of offensive linemen. And so Steve Adazio's time was really kind of stretched and pulled and had to be divvied up amongst a large group of priority targets for A&M. And it sounds like they did a really good job with that. All the offensive linemen that we've talked to have really had glowing things to say about their meetings with Coach Adazio. They talked to a lot of the current offensive linemen on the team who told them kind of about Coach Adazio's style and how he wanted to coach his guys. And it was all positive. We haven't heard one negative thing about that. And it was I thought that would be one of the bigger hurdles on the weekend because they were bringing in so many offensive linemen, and it sounds like they did a good job with all of them.
Well, I mean, I'd probably give it probably a C+, B-. I mean, I think when you look at A&M's season overall, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a team that coming in the season that we all kind of expected to be a national championship contender. They weren't that. It wasn't all negative. I mean, I think if you look at the season in a nutshell, I mean, there's a lot to build from. I mean, I think if you look at the evolution of a guy like Jace Lavalette, you look at some of the strides, some of the bullpen pieces made, like Brandon Garcia and Evan Ashenbach. There are some pluses with this team. But at the end of the day, the expectation here was Omaha. The expectation here was to compete for a national championship. They didn't do that. And, I know Schloss is one of those people that, he doesn't believe that, if you don't get to Omaha, you had a bad season. But I think it recalibrates A&M's expectations a little bit, right? So, you get to the Final Four in your first year. I feel like, A&M kind of set the bar a little high in year one. And now I think you kind of calibrate it to where it's like, hey, now let's focus on just, finding a way to get to Omaha as opposed to, hey, we got to win a national championship. So at the end of the day, bad season, no. Great season, no. Just kind of an in-between for me.
Kendall, obviously the Ags fell in back-to-back games Sunday and Monday to a really good Stanford offense. Obviously, as somebody with a national view on all things college baseball, just can you help put into perspective how potent that team that David Esker has put together really is?
Yeah, no, man, that's a good question. It's kind of funny. I was talking to Brauninger and a couple other people today about Stanford, and I said, out of all the West Coast teams, they're the most SEC-like team I've seen. They may not have, they'll have 2 or 3 really good arms. The rest of the bullpen will be just okay, kind of like the way the SEC was this year. But what they do have is they have a really potent offensive lineup, and they can strike fast. I think the biggest thing for me when I look at Stanford that I really was impressed with those guys is the fact they never got too high or too low. I mean, even whenever the A&M beat them, it was kind of just I wouldn't call it cocky, but it was kind of like, okay, whatever, we've been here before.
All right, that's going to do it. TexAgs Rewind. Richard, I'll pull a David. Tell him what to do.
Like this video, comment on this video, tell us what you like most about Nick Savage in the comments, please. And then make sure you share this video on all your socials and then subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to TexAgs on YouTube and TexAgs Premium. So
That's how you do it.
Anything else? Did I miss anything?
That's everything to me.
Sweet.
Thanks, y'all.